Do you ever get to the point in your life or the life of a loved one or a friend that you don't love, gotten to the point where you were finished with the uh, pleasantries and you had to admit to yourself that no, this person is a pile of human fecal matter that nobody, nobody should be willing to tolerate having in their presence? Happened to me with a buddy of mine I met on the scooping crew. Now, this scooping crew, it's not something that you do for money. It's not a prestige crew. They're just not that type of people, and so they were my type of people. I at the time, this was 20 years ago, maybe 25, 15. It was in the distant, but not too distant past. That's where a lot of the stories that happened to me seem to have taken place, and it's leading me to question my own life currently. Is this how I want to spend my days? Remembering things from so far before I barely have a mental context. It's becoming increasingly fictionalized as the distance between me and the events I'm thinking about grows ever greater. And is that what I want life to be? Just an empty shell of a fading memory that I'm huddling around like the dying embers of a campfire for warmth when my capacity for generating existence, as far as I know, and no doctor has thus far told me otherwise, is as active as it ever was? Is that any kind of life? So this is something I wrestle with during the day. At night, I've got different problems, and we won't get into that. We don't like to get into things on this channel because the problem is if you start putting yourself out there, if you start really sharing details of your life, next thing you know, you're like on a reality TV show like those yahoos. And then you look on TV and it's like, look at those idiots making fools of themselves on television. And it's like, I always vowed from a very, very young age um, never to be a fool or to be made a fool of by myself or others, because it's others are quick to make fools out of passers-by, bystanders, the innocent. The less stake in you as a person they have, and the more they can. You hear kids today and they talk about people being non-player characters. What this means is, hey, I'm a psychotic person who doesn't think other people are real, and I feel comfortable explaining that to the public because I'm so into my own mind. I don't realize that that's just a symptom of psychopathy, not like a cool thing to say. Not one weird suburban white teenage boy is the star of jack shit. Okay? Helpful lesson, helpful lesson. Have fun. Enjoy your lives. Learn and grow. But do not, I repeat, do not become a megalomaniacal crazy person convinced that you are somehow not just one of millions of people doing their best to enjoy their life and become something if they can. Nobody is destined for anything but the grave, my friend. The grave. So let's just relax on that front while we're making life lessons. But this wasn't about people. This was about uh, cutting ties. And cutting ties is a sad topic because once you cut a tie, the only way to fix it, the only way, is to tie it back together. And knots are something I've struggled with socially and non-metaphorically. The mending of loose ends, it's just a struggle for me. I tend to like to drop. Like, this has gotten complicated. Outie, you know. It's why I have so many friends. So many friends because I'm always there for them if they need me. My problem is they never need me. I'm seldom there for friends that don't need me. And so that puts me in kind of a spot. But, that's why cutting ties with the person in question about 15, 25 years ago was such a difficulty. It was a problem in my life because I had to do something. And as you can imagine, when pressured into doing something, I feel enormous pressure because doing something is foreign. And I don't mean that in some kind of racist sense. Let me put it another way, because I suck in so many ways, but I refuse to be painted as racist by people who would selectively edit this. Oh, I've already said enough words they can forget it. An idea that was it didn't feel like it came from within me. You know this feeling. Doing something I'm talking about. The motivation to do things is not one that I possess in any great abundance, and it's not one that I demonstrate to a detectable degree in my life. I feel driven to do certain things, but they do not seem to count as usable things. So my sense of what I'm willing to do is nonsensical garbage. And that is shockingly the sense of society as well. My obsession with nonsense is not regarded highly. And so I perturb many. And I know I've used this word before. And I don't use it lightly, but I don't use it heavily either. We can get down the middle path here together as a team, because I'm not trying to sell you Brooklyn Bridge to Nowhere, or indeed anything. I have no product. Like, if you like this, check out my that. I guess I do have other videos that you could like and subscribe. You could show your appreciation by mailing me naked women, but we all know that only a few of these options are really simple, and more important still, only a few are ethical. This was an ethical test. If I receive a naked woman in the mail, I will cooperate with the FBI in shutting you down. I am not responsible. I'm here to help save naked women in the mail. All right, let's make that clear right now. If you're watching this right now on your smartphone, or a naked lady trapped in a mailbox going through the distribution centers, bump, 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 as they scan your barcode, please know that I am on your side, and I would urge you to immediately pause this video and dial 911, and they can use the GPS on your phone to track it down. I can't believe you haven't thought of that before. And I'm very sorry that you're naked. They will put a robe around you as soon as you're recovered. Those people at the distribution centers, they're good people. They're hardworking people. It's a huge building. They're often bigger than a football field. One naked lady or a couple, I don't know how many they stuff in those boxes, these sickies, but coming out of a box, it will create a stir in the vicinity. But believe me, you are shielded by the sheer vast size. They virtually have their own clouds and weather in there. You will be amazed. What a way, to come back to freedom and get saved from bondage, literally, in a postal delivery center, and they'll know how to route you to wherever you're from or wherever you need to go. If where you're from is the kind of place that stuffs its young women into boxes and tries to ship them across the country with a couple stamps or a flat rate envelope, I'm sorry, maybe you don't want to go back there. And I wouldn't blame you. I wouldn't blame you if you didn't. I'm not here to assign blame. And that's one of the number one things I hear, and one of the number one complaints, and one of the number one reasons I have to cut ties with so many people is this willingness to assign blame. You simply offend the same person 7 or 8 times in a deep, lasting, cutting way that will take years to heal, if true healing is possible at all. Do that just so many times, at virtually every opportunity, to everyone who gets close to you, and it's like they change. Some kind of change comes over them, and they're like guarded. It's almost like they don't want to be lashed out at and hurt. And I hate that because it's like right when I get them, to where I'm getting what I need out of the friendship, this sense of power and domination and the inflicting of pain that I've been forced to suffer on innocent others. And it's like, then they're all like, oh, actually, I'm busy. And suddenly, those fun nights where we're all sitting around with our historic Sprite can collections, and we're like, this is the first one that had the website on it. 1996, can you believe? It changed so fast. There was a time when I was in middle school, children that I know are watching this. I know you're watching this all the way through. There was a time when I would see a McDonald's bag litter blowing in the wind, and I could look at it, and if it didn't have a website, McDonald's.com, on it, I would know that bag was a year or two old, because putting the website on the bag, my friends, was new. It was a weird time. The stuff was in the air, but they hadn't invented it yet. You could only do weirdo forums and stuff. You'd get the internet and you'd have to pay to make a long distance call to a city an hour away to get onto America Online or something as your portal. And it was just a bunch of message boards. There was a bunch of pervos from day one trying to get naked pictures of little kids, pervos from day one. And then there was just a bunch of message boards where you can be like, the Beatles sure were good, weren't they? It was a weird time. There was no Silk Road. There was no video chatting. You couldn't order weird chemicals. There was no Silk Road. And there isn't now, so it hasn't changed that much. But it was a different time, and we didn't have social media. The media, it was inherently social. When you went to someone's GeoCities page and they were like all about my favorite character from some weird show that had been off the air for 7 years, it didn't get more social than that. They were telling you who they were at every GeoCities page. But apparently it wasn't enough. The revolution was not won through GeoCities. So we moved on. And it was when it became apparent that GeoCities was not where Web 2.0, as they were already calling it then, was headed. Well, then we had little to no, I would say no choice but to try again. And so that's when our friendship started to fray, because this friend was all in on GeoCities. Like they had stock in it or something. Like, I don't think they literally did, because I don't know that organization was ever publicly traded. But again, I was young at the time. I know it's hard to believe when you look at me now that I was ever a young gentleman, but I assure you, I definitely was, and it was no fun. It was no fun for those who knew me or for myself, because I was, and this would be very difficult to believe, I had awkwardity issues from a very young age. I just didn't know how to relate to my peers especially. But my adult supervisors didn't like me either, and I don't blame them, but that's no excuse to handle it poorly. What I do is look back at the ones who are like, I've found my victim. And there weren't many. There was possibly only one that rose to such an egregious level, but they had trained me to identify betrayal early. So when I had this friend obsessed with GeoCities, and I could just see wherever the gold rush of the coming internet sensation was going to be, GeoCities was just not going to be a key element going forward, and that's okay, If there's anything the internet times have taught us, people old enough to remember them as they started, it's that key players change. Dominance now means nothing. Yahoo used to be a big deal. Yahoo could stop existing tomorrow, and aside from some people using it to have emails for their Twitter bots, I don't really think that it's going to be much of a strain on the world. And at one time, it was a big deal. They had money, and it seemed like they would do things. You never know, Companies come and they go, and so do things. Something that seems cool one year, like Gunsmoke, one of the longest running TV shows apparently, must have seemed cool to somebody, but my God. you go into the hospital because someone stabs you in the kidney, and the next thing you know, the only thing on is 2 hour block of this claptrap. No wonder America was stupid then, and it's stupid now. We've got better shows, but that's not the only shows there are. You understand? There's far worse shows, and that's where the money is. So it's a dark time for those of us involved. So GeoCities is plummeting. Its value as a company already precarious because they didn't get in on the Google advertising model the way that when Google revolutionized advertising and created a fountain of money spurting up in their company they could use to just pour down the drain of canceled project after canceled project. My God, if I handled my money the way that Google does, I would have been dead in a ditch a long time ago, but I don't have a fountain of magic money that one idea gave some guy in 1998 that equals infinite siphoning of wealth from all the rest of society. So I'm at a bit of a disadvantage compared with the search engine giant Google. But one area where I am even more disadvantaged is in the maintaining of friendships. And this friendship could not withstand the transition from GeoCities. And honestly, I can't even tell you what I jumped to next. It wasn't MySpace yet. That wasn't a thing. I think people were trying to make quote-unquote professional websites. A lot of people were live journaling, but folks, I don't like to go on and on about stories about my life or my feelings, and that was not a venue that was a good fit for me at the time. I kind of vanished from online spaces. I was interested in other things, in the recording arts and a few dabblings at the writing arts, and I wasn't going to put these dabblings online for free for years. And it was in a website setting. So, it was a difficult process. And my friend the whole time was like, why aren't you on GeoCities? I went to look at your old GeoCities about programming in QBasic and it's down. The comments are all gone. All those comments, my God. And they were worked up about these comments. They said, I spent possibly a combined total of 80 hours over the last 2 months writing comments to the QBasic blog. And I'm like, you did? Because all my notifications were spam for penis enlargement and penis shrinkage, which were the ones that caught my eye. Because if anything, we don't need to get into it, but it was that volume of spam where I was even seeing those ads, and it was very. I just stopped paying attention. I filtered it all out. No comment. Never read the comments. I didn't really care. I was just copying and pasting pictures from an old text-based FAQ I found. The GeoCities meant nothing to me. I was just trying to get this friend off my back. And I said, why on earth would you spend so ungodly long? That's like full-time working hours writing comments on my GeoCities. This was we got past him being hurt that I hadn't seen or noticed. And I said, my God, why would you do that? And he said, to help struggling programmers learn the very subroutines that you were teaching about. I was trying to further your GeoCities page's mission of spreading QBasic programming knowledge to everyone with access to a DOS computer. And I said, well, that's noble. But how dare you assume that something that I run is going to be facilitating your content by your standards, by how you want. If you want to invest time, I said, into writing this informative stuff, then put it on your own QBasic GeoCities page and stop pressuring me. And he said, I wanted to make a GeoCities QBasic page, but that's what you chose as your topic, and I didn't want to copy you. And I was like, well, Marvin, I don't care. Oh, I shouldn't have said his name. I said, I don't care about it. You can take it over. And he's like, I can't take it over because you deleted it. I looked into it. I had 30 days to restore it. And I was like, would you like to take it over? He said, yes, but it pains me that you don't want to do it yourself. And I was like, well, hold on there, buddy. You just said that you wanted to do it. And he said, yeah, and I do, but not as much as I want you to want to do it. And you don't want to. You just don't want to. And I was like, no, I don't. I don't care. I hate GeoCities. It's dead. you shouldn't invest any time into it. The future is elsewhere. And he says, you just don't understand. They're coming out with some really good updates and you just don't understand. And I was like, how much have you invested in this company? And he said $42,000. Like, my God, you're in middle school. How did you get that? He said, I stole it from my mom, and I stole it from my dad, and I stole it from my grandpa, and I stole it from my grandmother, and they're going to find out by the end of the month when their bank statement comes in. It's like, my God, you just doomed your family to destitution. You ought to be ashamed of yourself and attempt to recover the funds when they find out a minor invested in it. How did you do that? He said, E-Trade for half of it, and Ameritrade for the other half. It was too large, and he made up 2 fake identities. I didn't report him to the authorities. Okay, I did not report him to the authorities. I did not tell them that Marvin Smitherson had committed egregious personal identification fraud, theft, grand larceny, in my opinion, with the sum of that amount. I didn't say a word to the feds or to the local police, the municipals, the state, no investigators. That's not what I did. And you know what happened instead? You know what happened instead? They found out, obviously. I'm sorry, these memories. They found out, obviously. They knew. They knew that he was not artful in his fraud, and surely his family suspected him when he was suddenly nervous all the time, and they found this out, and they knew why instantly. They had been worried about their little guy for quite some time, I'm afraid. It's a tragic story. But in his twisted head, the only way anyone could have caught him is for being tipped off, and I was the only person who knew, because I had asked him how much he invested, because I could see his passion was illogical. And he gets out in a week, and he sent me a letter every week. 15 years. 15, 25, you see, I never remember these things. And he has said that he hates me for turning him in. No amount of pleading with him to understand that I did not say a word to anyone. It was his inept criminality that caused these issues, has helped in the slightest. He says he's coming to kill me. He doesn't say it in so many words that it wouldn't get out of the prison, but I can read between the lines. Wrap up my business. I'm not long for this world, so I just wanted to let you know that sometimes cutting ties can be difficult, and sometimes those ties that you've cut so long in the past, those ties that are just been flopping around in the breeze, sometimes those aren't flopping from the breeze. Sometimes they're flopping because those are live wires, and when one just randomly snaps back into you, it doesn't tie a knot. It doesn't repair the friendship. It just electrocutes you to death. And that's probably not how he's planning to kill me, but I'm not long for this world, and I am trying to make my peace with my imminent murderer. I do have new locks on the doors. The windows I can't afford new windows, guys. It's shocking. It's shocking how much a window costs, and I can't. I would have done it long before now, not for security reasons, but for insulation reasons, if that was an option. I can't even get one of those Ring doorbells. And it's really sad, because no one will see this man coming when he comes to not electrocute me to death. But I just wish he could get over it, and I wish he didn't feel the need to blame me for his issues, because I don't blame him. I know he's just doing, grand larceny because he believes in GeoCities, and I'm just not reporting him to the police because I believe in friendship. So why those two elements put together equal my imminent death? It's just one of those things in life. It's not always fair, It's not always fair, and it's okay that it's not always fair, because as people, as human beings, we ourselves are not always fair, are we? And that probably accounts for a great deal of why life isn't fair. That phrase tends to gloss over the rather evident fact that it would be fair if people were fair. Very little unfairness. There would be unfairness still, but it puts the blame back on random nature and chaos rather than on human activity. If there's one thing I can do before I pass here to my murder, if it's to convince you to strive for more equity and fairness in your human interactions so that stuff like being killed by some guy doesn't happen any more than it already, kind of has or will, I guess, in this sense, in this instance. But just less murders, please.